Looks like it is. You got a red light flashing there. Yeah, you're good.
What is that counter going?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
6,
5 out of
7.
Okay, that's what I got left.
You got 46 minutes to go this pitch, man.
All right, we started on the time.
Yeah.
Oh, so that gets me feeling a little butterflies in my stomach here, as far as wanting to do a really good introduction. Last time I saw y'all, I put the question out there: how many people have woken up in the morning and feeling a sense of dread, as far as like, oh, just don't want to go to work today, or don't feel like going to school, in terms of feeling like the world's a hostile place. And I know that's something I felt for a long time, and working in a lot of really male-dominant work environments in manufacturing and the service industry, as far as metal fabricating, machining, it was just tough, where guys would expect me to come and say hi to them in the morning because they had been in the trade for longer, even though I had been the first one to arrive. So there's all these rules like private logic that everyone carries to different degrees in our society. And over time, I couldn't take it anymore, and I started working on my own, and it was a great opportunity to start exploring the bigger picture of life in terms of what was I really here for, what was my purpose, instead of people I was working around with saying, oh, making money here is a means to do other things outside. I really got to the point where I wanted to live every moment to the fullest in terms of feeling like I was bringing people great value and having people really love and support what I was doing. And there's the analogy that creating any vision, it's like an inside job first, and then we've got to see it in order for others to start to recognize that thing. So what we do at Community Machinery, it's not just building really high quality machines that support people in a good way. It's more about developing and recognizing our own inner world, so that when we go to design something, it's really keeping that end user in mind in terms of, will we like this thing? Does it feel good? Even if the thing is ready for the scrapyard, does it still look aesthetically pleasing? Is it something we're going to want to be around that makes our environment a more joyous place? And it's questions like that that are really going to make more of a lifestyle product and something that people perceive to have a higher value, and put a lot more energy in terms of the design and engineering aspect and making something really high quality to use. Where a lot of our world, we've gone away from that old world quality in terms of things that are made to last forever, or design that's really had people pour their lives into it, thinking that, oh, in 300 years someone's still going to be using this, or parts of this can still be adapted, instead of, oh, let's get a really low price point so we can just produce a bunch of things that no one really needs, but people think are really valuable today. Because we've all got these, we buy into things emotionally and we use our rationalization to back it up. So what if we used our emotions to help people really connect with healthy food, easier transportation, connecting with others on a deeper level, and we look at more of those things on a daily basis. And there's nothing that feels more inspiring for me than, even on a day where I don't want to get out of bed, if I realize when I get to my work environment, there's been an environment created there where people are going to check in and say, hey, how was your arrival here? How did it feel? And then if for a long time I hung out with this crowd, I still to this day hang out with this crowd. It's called the Art of Mentoring. And one of the things we do before we start into anything, there's this phrase, I'm not sure what indigenous culture it comes from, but it's the idea of the words that come before all, which is gratitude. So everything starts with gratitude. And there's a person that's role, the responsibility, is always bringing in gratitude. And having people wear different hats, different specialty roles, integrating different life stages into a place, all these key foundational principles is really the essence of cultural engineering. And to create good products, you can't really miss that piece, otherwise something's going to be missing in that product, because people aren't going to be caught and recognize how those things do perform in the real world. So it's one of those things where there's no real shortcuts about it, and it's a balancing. Balancing isn't like staying in balance, it's always shifting here and shifting here to create that perfect end product. So a lot of what we do is things for small-scale organic farming that aren't currently available commercially, and creating better value for people. As far as one of the products we're producing right now, or prototyping, is a self-loading compost spreader. So it's basically a tractor can back up and scoop a compost pile and spread it, which eliminates the need of an extra tractor with a front end loader for loading the compost spreader. So we're looking at people to help set up a design engineering department, and looking at partnering with some academic institutions to do that, and some farm incubators that can help test the early prototypes, and also looking at raising capital to move into a proper manufacturing space, where right now we're in 1,600 square feet. We've got our machine set up, and we've got probably $125,000 on the books as far as what's invested in the machinery that's there, between conventional machine shop equipment like an engine lathe, milling machine. We've got an iron worker that can just punch holes through steel, like inch and a 16th holes through a 3/4 inch piece of steel plate. So it's like, boom, your hole's there, instead of someone trying to work with a drill press or a hole saw, which is going to take an infinite amount longer, which is a lot of what people do on farms in their off season. They don't make the most use of that off season time. So part of what we can add value to is bringing people who want to have the hands-on skills and ease up on the farmers who might not want to be in the workshop in the off season. So there's a lot of great value, and long term it'd be great to have different communities doing this similar thing as far as utilizing this model, which a lot of farms utilize intern labor as far as making farms viable, whereas the change to this different kind of manufacturing, having a lot of people come in and put in sweat equity to have an ownership stake, and not only that, but to really see how to create their own enterprise with a minimal capital startup. So I think that gives a really bare bones version off the cuff, and I welcome your questions. Thanks so much.
Do you want me to film the questions?
Yes, please.
All right.
Oh, I don't know is everyone all right being on camera?
Totally.
If this ended up like on YouTube or something, is that cool?
So I love your realness at the start. We're all human, and I love it. And then you really started tapping into, in your unique value proposition, from my perspective, you started tapping into your higher level concept, which is inner expression. You're giving people the chance to express their inner, because like when you said, visioning starts from it's an inside starting process, and then you put it out there and you get other people to help shape it and help change it and create your vision into reality. That service and that process, that design, thinking, inner expression process, to me is the higher level value that you offer at community machinery. But you've also done a wonderful job of sort of articulating the other features that you also provide, and those are things like when you at the end you wrapped up with how your program or your community machinery has an entrepreneurial aspect and sort of an empowering and thinking about starting a business off of what they make aspect. It took a while to get to that piece, and I think the only sort of constructive piece that I have is that you really created your higher level concepts, and you convinced me, but then you started going into a lot of details about sort of day-to-day specifics and some of the things going on that were a little too detailed, and you sort of lost me. And then when you wrapped up with the entrepreneurial piece at the end, I was like, oh, another feature, another great impact of your thing. So that's constructive from my point of view.
Thanks so much, Carly.
Pleasure.
Yeah, I would echo that. So try not to get caught in the weeds.
So what was the leads?
Well, just like going into the fine details.
Such as
Just, I can't think of any specifics right now, but
like
just
what
like.
kind of machines we have, or
No, that's valuable. I would say like maybe it's just a bit of finessing and organizing your story into a bit more of an intuitive timeline. Your passion, your heart, your values are really present. But like going to a bit more about the machine shop and a bit more, like what do you do? Why do you do it? You know, like it's important. The heart was there, so you spent a lot of time at the beginning talking about, you know, what it was like working in a space that didn't have these values and how that affected you, and then you said, well, what community initiatives, but like just maybe try to organize that timeline a bit more for that story. If that makes sense.
That's vague, but I'm sure we'll get more feedback. And
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it sounds to me like you're going through a paradigm shift. You've gone from somewhere where you thought about the world a certain way, you've gone through a narrow passageway where it felt like the walls are closing in, and now you've come out the other side and you have a whole new take on life, and you have a whole new take on what it means to be in relationship, what it means to be in community, what it means to do business. Like every piece of your life has been impacted by something, and you alluded to it when you said, there's this kind of indigenous statement that talks about, and you mentioned that, but that's whatever the spirit of that is, it's shifted everything for you. Don't misunderstand when I say that's important, because I've gone through those myself, but don't bring that into your pitch as much. You can say, because I was timing you were 2.5 minutes before you even told us what community machinery was.
Right.
And that's a problem, not because what you were saying before is a bad stuff. It's just the placement of it. Community machinery, boom, hit us. High point, look at the stuff, look at the value, look at the why. Here's my experience. This is what shaped this. And I'm sure you have a similar experience. Boom, now you've tied me in. Back to community machinery, these are the other parts of it. This is how we're hitting at a community level. This is how we're shifting the culture that exists around, whatever, misogyny, like you mentioned, like, men in the workplace. And like, I get it. Now I've been on those contracting crews, and it's not a good culture. I'd want to shift that myself. But so anyway.
Yeah, I think on the same vein, super genuine and really comfortable. And I liked although I think the 2.5 minutes on your personal path to get here is a little long. I did find it engaging and thought you had a really good way to paint a picture for someone who's not in that world and space. It like totally made sense to me. It's when you got to essentially your value proposition. And when I think of it as thoughtful machining or machining with heart, right? Like we talked about leading with the heart rather than the head. And so you started to talk about, what that looks like. And what I think I heard is that translates into machining for other socially conscious or thoughtful businesses. And you gave us a little taste of that, and it got a little blurry. But I also, in previous conversations, you've talked about sort of the esteem building and what else you're accomplishing through leading by heart in your shop. And I didn't hear that in your pitch. So whether that's just a byproduct and you don't want to play front and center, I think it could be a 2-pronged value proposition, and that you harness some power in those examples that you've touched on a little bit in the past. So just, I think it is about the order, the clarification, the articulation, but you're right there. And also I would clarify what your immediate ask is. So whoever you're pitching to, like, what do you need right away? Like, are you all good in terms of your business model and you just need customers? Or do you need some other things to help you continue to shore up the business model?
Right.
And ultimately, how are you going to make money? So is this a program? Is this a nonprofit? Is this a business? And just give us a little bit of that at the end as well.
Okay, so I'd like to speak to that in terms of, I think you raised a really great point in terms of, it'd be nice to have some of the stories of successes that have happened in the shop. I feel like building on that in terms of not just talking about my own personal experience, but like, I had these personal experiences and look how they play out now in terms of having a better way to go about things. So that's great, that's gold. And yeah, as far as the immediate ask, I think a big part of it is recognizing we're doing the social development piece and the heart connected piece. So to be able to access some funding in that way and be able to build a bunch of prototypes and then be able to launch that and say, hey, these are all things we can manufacture. These are some examples of the quality we can build, the engineering solutions that are integrated in these things. And then it's easy to do a bigger ask in terms of, okay, now we need to raise this much capital to have a manufacturing facility, create this many jobs, and all the spin-off benefits. And it's also going to integrate this same social programming for free in terms of being able to sell those end products at a competitive rate.
Right.
is going to be the thing that's going to provide that big picture. It's like you can't just have, it's like two halves of a wheel. You gotta have the social part, and you gotta have the manufacturing part in terms of creating the economic viability to keep things rolling.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was the best job that I've heard you do as far as describing what you're doing. I thought that, but I would still focus on like really clarifying exactly what's going on and what you're doing. But I did think that was the best job that you like. That is by far the best job. I know what you're doing now. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I'd be I loved it, and I'd be curious to hear, maybe explore how does the machine shop feel like? Like what does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it do? What does it sound like? Like what's that energy, that human energy that you're bringing into? Because not many people make the link between, you know, social development and machining. Like for them, it's like this is a technique, and technicians do this, and then, you know, so that space. What does that feel like? And so that I'm like I'm in, and whether I'm an investor or a decision maker in government or a potential client, or to get me, like I felt it there. I'd love to see where does the space hit here as well.
Yeah. That's I think that's other great valid points in terms of captivating their invested a lot in terms of making it like a bright white space, lots of lighting, and machine placement and how things are laid out so everything's easy to access. And I know there's a lot to do with the environment still, as far as, you know, it'd be nice to have some flowers in the washroom and all the things like that.
But when I say I'd like to know what this space looks like, I'm going for the fields. Like for me, like most of the machines you mentioned, I have no idea what they are. So for me, it's sort of like a detail that's sort of like went above my head. So that might be something you want to think about depending on who you're pitching to.
And
But
I guess just to ask, it would be fair game as far as if I could brought in a prop and I'm like, hey, this is a piece that would cost $1,200. We made it for whatever.
Even just the comment that you made about the shop and the value of the assets of the machines in the shop was enough to substantiate that it's a full shop.
Okay.
Like for us, it's enough to substantiate. You're legit, real business.
You're running.
It's all there. It's going. So that's enough.
Perfect.
But I did like the way you said how, you know, on a farm or on an in-field or in-the-field situation, you've only got so many tools, and so your shop has the ability to do what those tools can do in 3 hours in 15 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You kind of use that whole picture at one point, and I like that. But it makes me think. So, how do we get this concept of community machinery closer to the field, closer to the people that need the innovations when the problems arise? Right? So do you see, for example, a question that comes out of that, do you see community machinery being a concept that can be on a cooperative farm, or, you know, in another industrial setting that needs that innovative, creative workshop?
I love that point. And one of the long-term aspirations is having a framework so that can be recreated in a regional way that's recognizes the nuances in that region, but also brings like the best set of practices as far as what are the social norms that need to happen in terms of that, having an environment that feels good or people feel safe. Like, I'm gonna walk in here and the clock's not gonna start ticking as soon as I'm in here. I know the first time I went to an accountant, they sat me down, we had a conversation for hours. The next time I came back, it was like getting this bill for all that time before. I'm like, whoa, like who's creating these rules? So having that in terms of a safe space where
The social norms, and then the technical norms to actually compare the 3 hours of using a drill versus 15 minutes with the drill press, right? Those are the norms that need to be transferred to replicate your model, right?
And when you use that example, I would just say only because you stayed on the example of farming, for really that's the only example you gave us, that if you speak to those industries, just mention more than one of them. So if it's farming and forestry or like something that's relevant, just so that we don't then begin to think that your farming is your specialty. Keep it broad open. Small point, but just.
and that's one of the things I've been looking at in terms of, I know for me, like most of the asks are around farm equipment, but as well, I mean, I'd love to make things for, I mean, Mount Allison University being right close by, we've submitted a quote there, or doing more municipal infrastructure.
Right, so
would
just
be
sliding that in there, that it's, that you, if indeed you want to broaden that out, which it sounds like, just to
Yeah.
slide in, so that we don't end up thinking that you're just have one specialty.
Right.
We're at a time, so.
Yeah.